All right, welcome everyone to Miss Monagal's class. If you're gunning for those top marks in your VCE English language exam, well, you've landed in exactly the right spot. Today's explainer is a full-on masterclass tackling two of the absolute most critical, yet honestly, most frequently mixed up, foundational concepts out there: coherence and cohesion. We're going to break down exactly what these terms actually mean, how they dance together, and most importantly, how you can write about them like a high-scoring VCE pro.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Grab your notebooks, get a pen ready. We're kicking off with a quick do now. Then we'll untangle cohesion versus coherence. After that, we'll hit the Flick-CP framework, take a peek inside cohesion, and wrap it all up with some killer exam strategies. Section 1, the do now. Let's get those brains warmed up and set the stage. So here's your task. I want you to literally pause this explainer right now. Seriously, hit pause. Grab your pen and jot down your absolute best guess for this question. What is the difference between cohesion and coherence? Don't stress if you're kind of fuzzy on it. Just get your initial gut thoughts down on paper so we can build on them or maybe fix them up as we go. All right, go ahead and hit pause. Section 2, Cohesion versus Coherence explained. Let's clear up that massive confusion examiners complain about every single year. Welcome back. Take a look at what you just wrote and compare it to this. Cohesion. That's the textual stuff. It's the explicit, physical, linguistic connections, linking words and phrases together. Basically, it's the grammatical glue holding the whole shebang together. Coherence, on the flip side, is the interpretive part. It's the overall logical progression. Does the text actually make sense to you, the reader? A great trick to remember this: you can absolutely have a text with high cohesion, perfect grammar, lots of linking words, that totally lacks coherence because the ideas are just complete nonsense, or, a super choppy conversation with low cohesion that still makes perfect sense to the people talking, meaning high coherence, simply because they share context. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about with cohesion. Look at how all these little nodes connect back to a central point. It's like a giant puzzle. When a text is cohesive, it's packed with these explicit connections. We're talking pronouns pointing back to nouns, repeated words, conjunctions bridging ideas. These connections make sure the text reads like a unified, tightly knit whole, which, you guessed it, is a massive factor in creating that overarching coherence. Moving right along to Section 3, the Flick acronym breakdown. Because let's face it, we need a solid system to analyze all this. If you don't already have this scrawled in your notes, write it down right now in massive letters. Flick, CC, F-L-I-C-C. This is your ultimate go-to analytical checklist for coherence: formatting, logical ordering, inference, cohesion, consistency, and conventions. Whenever an exam asks you to analyze how a text makes sense, you run it straight through this exact framework. So let's break down each letter so you can spot these like a pro. First up, we've got F for formatting. This is all about the spatial layout. Look at the formatting right in front of you on this slide. I'm using bold headings, I'm using bullet points, and hey, it's not just to make it look pretty. Formatting acts as visual signposting. It grabs the reader's eyeballs and pulls their focus to the most salient or important information super fast. By dropping in a bold heading or maybe throwing data into a neat table, the author is heavily aiding the coherence. Next is L for logical ordering. This just ensures the text is sequenced in a way that actually makes sense in your brain. Think about your daily school routine. You go to homeroom, then period 1, then recess, then period 2, right? It's chronological, it's sequential. Imagine if your day randomly ping-ponged from homeroom straight to the final bell and then back to recess. Absolute chaos. Texts are exactly the same. A logical progression of ideas lets the audience follow the author's train of thought without getting mental whiplash. Let's see how this builds into your own essay writing. The classic Teal burger. Topic sentence, explanation, evidence, link. I bet you've been using this for years, right? Well, there's a reason for that. It is a textbook example of logical ordering within a paragraph. You start with your main idea, you elaborate on it, you prove it, and then you link it right back. Sticking to these structural conventions makes your essay incredibly coherent for the examiner marking it. All right, the I in Flick is inference, and this one is absolutely crucial. Inference is basically reaching a conclusion using evidence and reasoning. It's about reading between the lines. Take this cookie jar example. If a parent walks into the kitchen and spots sticky little fingerprints all over the cookie jar, they don't need a written confession from their kid. They use the evidence to infer that their child snagged a cookie without asking. In language, it's the same deal. The author implies, and you, the reader, infer based on the context. This graphic breaks it down perfectly. Making inferences boils down to a simple formula. Text plus schema equals inference. Now, schema is really just a fancy linguistic term for your background knowledge. If a text talks about a green box with a red bow and your schema knows those are classic Christmas colors, boom, you instantly infer it's a Christmas present. Inference is a huge driver of coherence because it lets authors skip the boring, tedious explanations. They just assume you have the shared knowledge to fill in those gaps. Okay, rounding out our acronym, the final 3 C's are cohesion, consistency, and conventions. We're going to tackle cohesion in just a sec, so let's look at consistency and conventions first. A coherent text is highly consistent, both structurally and lexically. Think about it. If you're reading a recipe, you fully expect text-type conventions like a list of ingredients and a step-by-step method. Lexically, you expect a consistent semantic field. You want words like slice, dice, and sauté. When an author continually uses predictable topics and formats, the information flows smoothly, making it super coherent.
Section 4, deep dive into cohesion. Let's zoom right in on that middle C in our flick-click framework. Remember, cohesion is that explicit grammatical glue. When you're sitting in that exam, there are specific discourse factors you need to be hunting for. We're talking lexical chains, like using a synonym so you don't sound like a broken record repeating the same noun. Information flow, like using clefting to shove the spotlight onto the really important information. Then we've got referencing, ellipsis, substitution, and conjunctions. Spotting and naming these explicit ties, that is exactly what puts points on the board. Now, what's really fascinating here is how tiny linguistic tweaks make a massive difference. Take substitution, for example. Instead of saying, I asked for a coffee and she got coffee, which, let's be honest, sounds incredibly clunky, we just say, I asked for a coffee and she got one. The word one just swaps in for coffee. It drastically cuts down on that annoying repetition, creates a rock-solid cohesive tie between the two clauses, and makes the whole sentence flow so much more naturally.
All right, Section 5, acing the VCA exam. Theory is awesome, but let's talk about how to actually apply this stuff to get those top marks. This quote right here, this is a direct message to you straight from the 2018 VCA Examiner's Report. They literally stated that students must explain language features in meta-language terms. In short, be as specific as possible. Guys, you absolutely cannot just write the text flows well. No way. You have to use the jargon. You need to be explicitly dropping terms like anaphoric referencing, hyponymy, or parataxes to prove you understand the exact mechanics of how the text is achieving cohesion and coherence.
Let's take a look at what a high-scoring response actually looks like in the wild. This student is analyzing a text about the Commonwealth Games. Notice how laser-specific they are. They directly quote the text, they cite the exact line numbers like line 36 or lines 11 to 13, and then they explicitly state what the reader can infer. Like from the phrase over 1 million tickets, they explain that the reader infers potential global awareness and economic growth. They don't just wave their hands and say, there's inference here. They break down exactly how it works within that specific context. So the absolutely crucial takeaway is this. When you sit down for that exam, you must have your master strategies locked and loaded. Always, always reference line numbers when you point out a cohesive tie. For your Section B analyses, get your context, purpose, and register right up there in the introductory paragraph to frame your whole response. And most importantly, seriously, this is where so many students drop marks. Never just list cohesive devices like a grocery list. You have to explicitly explain how those ties actually contribute to the overall coherence and meaning of the text. Well, we've definitely covered a lot of ground today in Miss Monagle's masterclass. From untangling those tricky definitions, to exploring the grammatical glue of cohesion, all the way to unpacking the FLICC framework. So I'm going to leave you with this challenge. How will you use the FLICC framework to transform your very next practice essay from just a random collection of sentences into a logically ordered, highly coherent masterpiece? Don't just nod along to the theory. Go apply it. Get to your desks, grab a past paper, and start hunting down those cohesive ties. Happy studying, everyone.